Sup my homeboys, today we are going to get our learn on about Plato and his analogy of the cave. Plato was this cheeky man, who was born in 420-something BC. He lived around the time of some other pretty swell philosophers such as Aristotle and Socrates. This trio are believed to be the founders of Western philosophy. Plato's real name was actually Aristotle. Plato was just a nickname given to him because he was absolutely jacked my dudes. That's right, before Plato got all deep and brooding and became an absolute loser, he was an award-winning wrestler. After the execution of his teacher Socrates, tectonic plates traveled the world, more specifically Egypt and Italy. He also created a school, and probably partied like the absolute 100% lad he was. After this, Sonic the Hedgehog went off to code and program a little old book called Republic, which is full of people with names like Adamantium, Polmarxu, Glonic, and Thrasymachus, that darn diddly Thrasymachus. The book is filled to the salted rim with themes such as justice, morality and the soul. In Republic, Plato explains his theory of forms, which we need to understand before we get into that cray-cray cave business. The theory of forms is based around the idea that there are two worlds, the physical world and the world of forms. We live in the physical world, but get this. The physical world is not the real world, everything in it is merely illusionary. The realm of forms is in of an actual fact the real world. I know, right? That's pretty wavy. The realm of forms is the home of, you guessed it, forms. Forms are basically these perfect blueprints of everything in the physical world. You and me go on an adventure and take a look at apples, and I am not talking about the Steve Jobs kind of apples closed bracket. Every iPhone we see in the physical world will look different, beautiful but different. And despite these disgusting differences, we as evolved apes/lizard people knows an apple when's we sees one. That's because there is this perfect juicy scrumptious hot two-trot form of an apple in the realm of forms. Plato states the existence of this realm on our perception of junk. The apple is red, but so is this Nissan Micra K13. We know they are different things because we have this inbuilt concept of redness, appleness and Nissan Micra K13ness. If we didn't have the realm of formsies, then we would all be a bunch of hot messes on the floor laying in our own dribble, because we have to figure out what a thing is every time we came into sweet sensual contact with it. Above all of these forms is the form of the good. This is like the ultimate form. The emperor form, the form above all other forms. You need to remember this, and also that scurvy is a real risk and only we can prevent it. As a matter of national security, you also need to know Plato and Stitch believe that our souls originate from the realm of forms. Souls travel to the physical world through the sea of forgetfulness where it is trapped in our mortal bodies. #gross. Crossing the sea of forgetfulness explains why we don't remember what the realm of forms is actually like, and what I did wrong to make my wife stop loving me. Plumpo explains his Hannah Montana form idea in his analogy of the cave, or allegory of the cave, if you are one of those people. Right, so let's set the scene. There is this pretty big cave. Inside the cave are a bunch of prisoners who have been chained up facing in one direction. #I love Harry. For this example I have chosen the cast of cult classic film Grown Ups to represent the prisoners. The prisoners are facing a wall, and behind the prisoners is a fire. Every now and then people will go behind them with puppets and objects and cast shadows on the wall in front of the prisoners. The prisoners play a game where they guess which shadow will appear next, and the hairless skin given who guesses correctly is considered intelligent. Then the craziest thing happens. You won't guess what happens next. Like, share and subscribe. One of the prisoner escapes. In this case Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi then makes a difficult journey out of the cave, falling over things in the dark and cutting himself on sharp stones and other stupid stuff. What a mongoloid. The prisoner finally reaches the cave entrance and their eyes sting in the sun. The prisoner realizes their previous life was a lie. A different real non-illusionary world exists. The prisoner then returns to the cave to tell the good news to the remaining prisoners, but they don't believe them, and depending on what version of the analogy you are reading, they tell them to go away or just straight up murder the living heck out of my boy Buscemi. Some versions maybe also possibly state that when the escaped prisoner returns to the cave they trip in the dark and die, so I mean that is a bit better, I guess. But hold on, we are not finished yet. This isn't happy Steve Buscemi story time, have a glass of milk, go for a nap, all is well and good in the world. No. This is philosophy. Every single thing in the analogy has a separate meaning. Firstly, the cave. This represents the physical world. The trapped prisoners represent the people inside the physical world, or more specifically the immortal souls trapped inside our filthy mortal bodies. The whole puppeteer shadow scenario, or Kevin James and Kermit scenario here, well, that represents people in power, or people that do not agree with Plato, holding up things in the physical world and falsely claiming them to be real. Remember the form of good from earlier? Well, that is represented by the sun. The escaped prisoner's eyes stinging when they see the sun is the crushing realization that the physical world is not real, and the fact I will never love another woman in the same way again. Please call me Margaret, I miss you. Just as the sun is needed for seeing, the form of good is needed for everything else to exist. The escaped prisoner's death is also likely a reference to Socrates' boy's death by the hands of the Athenian government. Apparently he was pretty salty about it. So to barbecue chicken wrap things up. Two worlds, the one we are in is simply illusionary. The real one is home to forms which are perfect blueprints of everything in life. And by everything, I mean everything. There are forms for concepts like justice and love. This theory is explained in the analogy of the cave, where there are prisoners and one of them escapes and realizes that the physical world they live in is a merely illusionary and everything is cool and nice and swell, but it isn't really. There are some people, however, who believe that Plato's theory of forms is an absolute bunch of flawed rubbish. But who would dare defile and question oh glorious master Plato's perfect theory? Well, actually it was Plato. He talked about the third man argument in his Parmenides dialogue. Now admittedly the third man argument sounds like a subpar rom-com, but it is fairly difficult, so stay with me here. Let us take three random men. Each man is different, but we know they are men because they have a manness or humanness to them. Therefore there must be a form for manness. This perfect form, however, must be itself a man, as all men must participate in the form of man. The form itself must also participate in a man form. This means that the form of man is based upon another form of man, or if you will, man form Mark II. But as man form Mark II is a man and must participate in a man form, it means there must be a form above that, or man form Mark III, and goes on forever and ever, or if you are feeling fancy, ad infinitum. Many also find issue with the fact Plato uses an analogy to explain his ideas. Plato will be walking down the street and some guy will come up behind him, probably Aristotle, and shout, "Hey Plato, if all knowledge comes from the realm of forms and art, music and poetry do not convey any knowledge, as they are only imitations of things in the realm of forms, why should I believe your argument when it's based on an analogy? Chump. So that's your lot. Congratulations on getting education. If you're using this for revision, throw in a couple of sick quotes and you got yourself an A star, and maybe you might regain the approval of your parents or ex-lover."